Biggity, the brownie, did a dreadful thing. He crept through a hole in Dame Clucker's fence, slipped inside her hen house, and stole an egg. Nobody saw him. Nobody knew. But when Biggity got back home and looked at the egg, he got a shock. It was bright green. Now the brownie knew it must be an enchanted egg of some sort, and he wondered what to do. "I'll boil it," he said. "If it's boiled, it can't do any harm. If it tastes nice, I'll have it for my tea." So he popped it into a saucepan of boiling water. But after a minute, the egg began to sing loudly. "Wee, wee." And before Biggity's astonished eyes, it burst with a loud pop. And out sprang a tiny green hen, complete to the last feather in her tail. "Ooh," said Biggity, and made a grab at it, but the hen dodged neatly to one side. She flew up to the beam in the ceiling and preened her feathers, keeping a sharp eye on Biggity. Now Biggity was not only a dishonest little brownie, but he was also untruthful and not very clean, so the little green hen was not very lucky in her owner. She stayed up in the rafters watching everything. She saw that Biggity's hands were dirty. She saw that his nails were simply filthy. She noticed that his hair had not been brushed. There wasn't a thing she didn't see. Biggity didn't at all like the way the little green hen watched him. He glared at her and said, "Stare all you like. That won't do me any harm. Wait till I get hold of you." "Cluck-cluck-a-luck," said the hen, and scratched the back of her head thoughtfully. A knock came at the door, and the pixie put his head in. "Coming out for a walk, Biggity?" he called. Before Biggity could answer, a voice came from the rafters. "Biggity hasn't washed it behind his ears this morning." The pixie stared at Biggity, laughed, and went away. Biggity was furious. He caught up a broom and tried to sweep the green hen off the beam, but she dodged away, and he swept down a great string of onions that fell round his neck. "Wait till I get you," said Biggity to the clucking hen. The baker came to the door and looked in. "Any bread today?" "Cluck-a-cluck." "Biggity's nails could grow potatoes," shouted the little green hen. The baker took a look at Biggity's nails, gave a shudder, and went away. Biggity could hardly say a word. He was so angry. He shut the door and the windows and fetched his stepladder. He meant to get the little green hen down, but she flew up the chimney, found a nook there out of the smoke, and stayed there, clucking loudly, and nothing Biggity could do would get her down. She didn't seem to mind heat or smoke at all. Dame Twiddle came to call. She sat down on a chair and asked Biggity if he was well. "Cluck-cluck-a-luck," screamed the hen up the chimney. "His teeth aren't well because he never cleans them." "Dear me," said Dame Twiddle. "Is this a new pet of yours, Biggity?" "No," said Biggity angrily. "Please go, Dame Twiddle. I'm busy today." "Yes, he has got to brush his hair and wash his hands," said the voice in the chimney. "Cluck-cluck-a-luck." Dame Twiddle took a quick look at Biggity's untidy hair and dirty hands and chuckled. "Well, you've got some good advice," she said. "I should take it, Biggity." As soon as she was gone, Biggity poured some water on the fire. It sizzled loudly, and clouds of smoke poured out into the room. Then Biggity stamped on the embers, and what do you suppose he did? He began to climb up the chimney. He meant to get that green little hen. Yes, he did. Up he climbed and up, and came at last to where the little green hen was cosy in her nook. She pecked him, but he took hold of her. He climbed down again, put her into a basket, and took her next door to Dame Clucker. Dame Clucker opened the door. "Good afternoon," said Biggity. "I've brought one of your hens back. She must have escaped through the fence." "Dear me, that's very, very good of you," said Dame Clucker in surprise. She took the basket, but the little green hen flew out and was away in the air before either the brownie or the old dame could catch her. "Well, well," said Dame Clucker, "she's gone. Take an egg from my hen house, Biggity, in return for bringing me back the hen." "Oh, no, thank you," said Biggity hurriedly. He had quite enough of Dame Clucker's eggs. He ran home in glee. Aha! He had got rid of that wretched bird, and earned a good mark for himself from Dame Clucker. He sipped his tea, humming. Oh. The postman brought him a letter and stayed for a chat. Suddenly a voice came from the chimney. "Cluck-a-luck-a-luck. Biggity has 2 big holes in his stockings. I saw his toes poking through when he changed his shoes." The postman giggled and went out laughing. Biggity turned pale with fright, and then red with anger, so the horrid green hen had come back again. He went to the chimney and looked up. "Are you up there again?" he called. The little green hen scraped about and dislodged a lot of soot that went flying down the chimney and covered Biggity from head to foot. What a sight he looked! "Biggity is very dirty, cluck, cluck, cluck," said the hen brightly. So Biggity was. He stood storming at the hen. Then he went off to have a bath. He soaped himself well. He washed behind his ears. He cleaned his teeth and his nails. He brushed his wet hair until it lay smooth and shining. He put on clean clothes, for the soot had got into every corner of his other clothes. Just as he had finished, there came a knock at the door. Tiptoe, the little pixie, looked in. "Oh," she said, when she saw Biggity, "how smart you look!" "Cluck, cluck, cluck!" screamed the little green hen in the chimney. "He has washed his hands, he has washed behind his ears, he has cleaned his nails, he has brushed his hair, he has no holes in his stockings." Biggity blushed, but Tiptoe looked at him admiringly. "What a clean brownie you must be," she said. "I will come and have tea with you on Saturday." She skipped off. Biggity was pleased. To think that such a pretty little pixie should say nice things to him. He went and admired himself in the glass. "And I have a runny nose. Excuse me." "Cluck, cluck, cluck," said the voice in the chimney. "Biggity is very conceited. He stares at himself in the glass." Biggity was going to poke a broom up the chimney to try and get down the hen when he stopped himself and thought for a moment. "No," he said, "that bird is only telling the truth. I was pleased just now when it told the truth and said nice things. It is my own fault if it says nasty things. I will see that it only has nice things to say. Aha! That will make it feel blue." So Biggity turned over a new leaf and became a clean and good little brownie. The green hen found nothing but good things to say, and soon she had so little fear of Biggity that she hopped down the chimney and sat on the arm of his chair beside him. Now she is his pet. She takes seed from his hand and lets him stroke her. And when Tiptoe the pixie comes to tea, the little green hen has a fine time, for they spoil her thoroughly. She only says nice things now, and if ever you go to see Biggity, don't be surprised if you hear a voice from the chimney or the ceiling, will you, saying, "Biggity washed his neck well this morning," or "Biggity had a bath last night. Cluck, cluck, cluck." Number 8. The Runaway Hat. It all happened because the wind blew Jill's hat off. It blew so hard that her straw hat flew off her head and went bowling over and over down the hill. "Run after it, Jill," said Auntie Kate. "Quick, or it will be lost." Jill ran after it, and soon got up to the rolling hat. For a moment it lay still, but just as Jill stooped to pick it up, the wind gave a puff and sent the hat on again. What was more annoying still, Jill felt absolutely certain she heard a chuckling laugh right by her ear. She looked around. Nobody was near. Who had laughed then? Surely it couldn't have been the wind. She ran on again after her hat. It was bowling on, far in front of her, jumping over puddles as if it knew it mustn't go into them. Then it lay still again. "Well," said Jill, "I'll get you this time," and she ran on as fast as she could. She bent down to her hat and caught hold of the brim, but "oh, botheration!" said Jill, for the wind jerked the hat out of her hand and sent it flying into the wood at the side of the road, and by her ear came that gurgling chuckle again, just as if somebody were laughing until the ears ran down the cheeks. Jill looked all around. No one was near. "All right," said Jill, "I can hear you, Mr. Wind. It's jolly mean of you to take away my hat, but I'm going to catch it, so there." She ran into the wood and looked about for a hat. Yes, there it was, caught in a branch of a tree. "I'm sure I could climb that," said Jill, and looked for an easy place to get up. But would you believe it? No sooner was she climbing up than the wind blew the hat off the branch and set it down on the ground again. It really was most tiresome. Jill climbed down. The hat lay away in the distance, half buried in last year's leaves. Jill decided to stalk it as a cat stalks a bird. "I believe the hat is helping the wind to tease me," she thought. So she dodged from tree to tree until she had nearly reached the heap of dead leaves where she thought the hay lay. the hat lay. Then suddenly out she pounced and caught hold of it. But it wasn't the hat, it was a great white toadstool that broke in her hands. Jill heard the wind laugh again and saw the hat running away in front of her. Jill was growing cross. On she went again, determined not to stop running until she caught the hat. She was quickly catching it up. She would soon have it. 2 or 3 steps more and grab, and oh! The hat had rolled right into a little pond that lay hidden in a dip in the wood. There it floated upside down, green with weed and brown with mud. "Very well," said Jill. "You're a very silly hat. I shall leave you there alone. I'm sure I don't want to wear you any more." She thought she heard a laugh behind her. Yes, there it was again, farther off, beyond the nearby trees. "I'll go and catch that rascally wind if I can," thought Jill, and went in the direction of the laugh. Now and again she heard the chuckling, and each time she ran in the direction it came from. After a while she stood still. She could hear no laughing. The wind was gone. But hark! What was that contented humming sound? Jill listened. Then she stole towards the hazel trees in front of her and peeped round them. What she saw made her stare as if she could not believe her eyes. She saw a beautiful little glade full of wild white anemones, each with dainty little frills of green, and they were dancing, every one of them, nodding and swaying, shaking out the little green frills, and looking as pretty as a picture. And kneeling down among them was the wind. He was blowing here and blowing there, making the flowers dance for him in every corner. Jill watched for a minute. Then she said, "Mr. Wind, do you know what you have done to my hat?" The wind turned round in surprise. "Hello, why it's Jill," he smiled. "Yes, I blew your hat off for a joke." "Well, it's rolled into a pond and I can't wear it any more," said Jill. "I think it's unkind of you." Oh dear, said the wind. "I didn't mean to do that. I must have blown too hard. I'm really very sorry." "I don't mind a joke," said Jill. "I think jokes are funny, even when they're played on me, but to lose my hat altogether isn't a joke, I can tell you." "Well, I'll give you my hat to make up for it," said the wind, looking very worried. "Only I haven't got one. My brother, the north wind, blew it away the other day. Would you accept a few of my flowers instead? They're the only ones out, you know, and this is my special garden." "They are certainly out very early," said Jill. "Yes, I'd like some, please. I'll make up for losing my hat." The wind picked up a lovely bunch of the dainty little anemones, told her the way out of the wood, laughed, and vanished. Jill went back up to the hill to her auntie. She showed her the flowers. "Good gracious, Jill," she cried. "Wherever did you find those flowers? I've never seen them out so early in the year before. How perfectly lovely." "The wind sent my hat into a pond," said Jill, "and gave me these flowers to make up for it. What are they called, Auntie Kate?" "They're wood anemones," said Auntie Kate, "but people always call them wildflowers. Wind flowers, because they dance so prettily in the wind." "So that's why he's got his garden full of them," said Jill to herself. "They're his very own flowers. No wonder they dance so prettily when he blows. And I think when you see the windflowers nodding and swaying when the south wind blows, you will say too that there couldn't be a better name for the little dancing flowers of the spring." 9. The surprising Easter egg. Anna was going to a party. She was all ready. She had on her new pink silk dress, a ribbon round her hair, her shoes in her bag, and a clean handkerchief in her pocket. She felt so excited, for she loved parties almost better than anything else. "Now it's time you started," said Mother. "Goodbye, Anna. Have a lovely time, and remember to say thank you very much to Mrs. Jones when you leave." "I won't forget," said Anna happily. She ran down the garden path and out into the lane. What fun it was to be going to a party! Little Louise Jones' birthday fell in Easter week this year, and it was going to be a lovely party, with an Easter egg for everyone to take home. Anna felt very happy. She skipped down the lane past Mrs. White's house. Anna always stopped and looked over the gate at Mrs. White's, because she had 2 lovely Persian cats, blue-grey with great orange eyes and long thick fur. Anna loved all animals, and wasn't it a pity she had no pet of her own at all? No dog, no cat, not even a goldfish. No dog, no cat, not even a goldfish lived at Anna's house. No one had thought of letting her have a pet. Anna's mother was not very fond of animals, so she didn't bother with them. Anna looked over Mrs. White's gate, hoping to see one of the lovely Persian cats somewhere in the garden. They loved Anna and always came running to her to be stroked. Anna knew that she had 6 little kittens just now, and how she longed to see them. But Mrs. White was rather a grand sort of lady, and Anna didn't like to ask if she might go and see the kittens. There were no cats in the garden at all, so Anna went on her way down the lane, thinking of the party, and wondering if there would be red or yellow jelly, and which she would choose. Halfway down the lane she passed an old tumble-down barn, and as she went by she heard a noise that made her stop in surprise. It was the meowing or mewing of cats. Now what could they be mewing for in the barn? Anna stopped and looked round. She saw a curious sight. One of Mrs. White's Persian cats was coming slowly along the hedge, and in its mouth it carried one of its kittens. It was holding the kitten by the skin of its neck, as cats do. Anna was so surprised. She watched the cat slip under the hedge, make its way through the wet field, and disappear into the old barn. The mewing still went on. Anna couldn't understand it. Mrs. White's cat must have taken all her kittens into the barn, she thought. What a dreadful place to take them, so damp, cold, and dirty. Poor little things. Anna found a hole in the hedge and squeezed through it. She went to the barn and peeped in. It was dark, and at first she could hardly see anything. Then she discovered where the kittens were. The mother cat had climbed up a plank and had put all her 6 kittens, one by one, on a shelf in the barn. There was a hole in the barn wall just there, and the wind came in. The kittens were cold and frightened. One crawled about the shelf, and then, to Anna's horror, it fell over the edge, bounced on the plank, and rolled to the ground. It didn't seem to be hurt, but Anna was worried. Suppose they all fell off. Silly mother cat to put her kittens there. Oh dear, I shall be late for the party, thought Anna, and I've got my best dress on. Whatever am I to do? I simply can't leave those kittens there. She looked round for a ladder. There was an old one at the edge of the barn. Anna dragged it across and put it up against the wall. She went up it and reached the shelf where the kittens were. There were 5 there, and one on the floor. The mother cat was there too, and she purred when she saw Anna. Anna took hold of a kitten and carried it down the ladder. Then up she went again, and before long all 6 kittens were safely on the ground. Then the little girl found an old basket without a handle. She carefully put the kittens into it, and with the mother cat trotting beside her, she went out of the barn and back to Mrs. White's house. How delighted Mrs. White was to have her kittens back again, safe and sound. She was hunting for them everywhere. A dog came into the house and frightened the mother cat, she told Anna, so I suppose she thought she had better take her kittens somewhere else. They would all have caught cold in that drafty barn. It is good of you to take so much trouble, Anna. I love all animals, said Anna, especially kittens. I'd love to have a pet of my own. Oh dear, look at my party dress. It's all dirty, and I've torn it. I can't go to the party, I'm afraid. Oh, I am sorry, said Mrs. White. Can't you go home and put another dress on? I've only got my school dress besides this, said Anna. It doesn't matter. I don't mind missing the party. If I've rescued your kitten family, I do love them so much. So Anna missed the party, for she didn't want to go in her old school dress. She was very sad about it, and Mother was very sorry for her. Mrs. White had told Mother how kind Anna had been, so she understood all about it. Never mind, darling, you shall have an Easter egg, said Mother, so Anna looked forward to that. She wondered if it would be a chocolate one. She did like chocolate very much. There was a chocolate egg for her. There was a chocolate egg for her, and another egg too, a most surprising Easter egg. Mother brought it into the dining room with such a funny smile on her face. It was an enormous cardboard egg, red, yellow and blue, and it made a noise. It did really. And what sort of a noise do you think it made? Guess. It mewed. Anna gave a scream of excitement and split the egg in half, and out jumped the dearest, prettiest little Persian kitten you ever saw. It was one that Anna had rescued from the barn that week. Mrs. White said that you were just the right person to have one of her kittens, said Mother. Do you like your Easter egg, Anna? "Mother, it's the loveliest one in all the world," cried Anna. "Oh, I don't mind missing the party if I have kitten of my own. I am so happy." Wasn't it a surprising Easter egg? 10. Tick-a-tock, the greedy rabbit. There was once a rabbit called Tick-a-tock who found 3 gold pieces lying in the sunshine. They shone and glittered, and Tick-a-tock thought they were very beautiful. "Now I am rich," he said, and he felt very proud. He took the gold pieces to his burrow and hid them there. Sometimes he took them out and counted them. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. And sometimes he counted them over and over again until he came to the number 100 and pretended he was very rich indeed. "I won't spend them," he said. "If I do, I shall be rich any longer. I'll just keep them here to look at." Soon he began to wish that he had more than 3. How exciting it would be if he had 12 to count. My, wouldn't he be a rich rabbit? But how could I get some more, he wondered. He thought, and for a long time he couldn't think of any plan at all. He was a silly rabbit, for he didn't need any money, not even a penny. He didn't have to pay for the grass he ate, nor for the tree bark he sharpened his teeth on, nor for the cozy burrow he lived in. He didn't have to pay for the sunshine that warmed him, nor for the wind that cooled him. He just wanted the money to make him feel rich. At last he thought of a good plan. "I will do odd jobs for everyone," he said. "Then I will charge people a gold piece, and I shall soon have as many as I want." So he put up a notice outside his burrow which said, "Odd jobs done. Apply inside today." Then he waited for his customers to come. Now many fairies lived around Tick-a-tock's home, and when they saw the rabbit's notice, they were pleased. Tick-a-tock hadn't a very good name for kindness, and the fairies all thought that he was turning over a new leaf, and was ready to do good turns to anyone. So the news soon went round that the rabbit would do all kinds of jobs, but nobody guessed that he meant to charge them gold pieces. First of all, Sammy Squirrel called on him and begged him to act as a postman for the day. I'm having a party," he said, "and there are so many invitations that I haven't time to take them all around myself, or I shall never get the jellies made." Tick-a-tock jumped up at once and took all the letters. He put them into his wallet and started off. It didn't take him very long to deliver them, for a rabbit gets along very fast. The last invitation of all was one for himself, so he didn't have to deliver that. Then he went to Sammy Squirrel's. "I've done your job," he said. "Now will you pay me, please?" "Pay you?" said Sammy, looking most surprised. "Who ever heard of paying for a kindly deed, I should like to know? We're not human beings, you know. We can afford to do things just out of kindness, which is much nicer. You must be mad, Tick-a-tock." "No, I'm not," said the rabbit. "That will be 1 gold piece, please, Sammy. Come on, pay me quickly." I haven't got even a silver piece," said Sammy crossly, "and I shouldn't give it to you if I had. I thought you were turning over a new leaf, and we're going to do good turns to us all for a change. You've been a mean little rabbit for a long time." That made Tick-a-tock furious, and he stamped off, tearing up his invitation as he went. He vowed he would make Sammy pay up sometime or other. Next day Fuff-Fuff, the fairy, went to ask him if he would carry a new dandelion clock from the hedge to her house, as her old clock was no use. She was such a tiny fairy that the weight was too much for her. Well, that was nothing to Tick-a-tock. He picked a fine dandelion clock, and in 2 minutes had taken it to where Fuff-Fuff lived, in a red toadstool, and had stood it in her little hall. "Oh, you kind rabbit," she said, and kissed him on the nose. "That little job will be 1 gold piece," said Tick-a-tock. Fuff-Fuff gave a scream and then laughed. "You must be having a joke," she said. "We don't expect to be paid for kind deeds in fairyland." "Nonsense," said Tick-a-tock. 1 gold piece, please." Well, of course, Fuff-Fuff didn't give it to him. She simply shut her door in disgust, and wouldn't open it even when he banged 12 times on the knocker. The next morning, Tippity the elf came to Tick-a-tock and begged him to carry him to his cousin Pippo, who was very ill. "I've flown all through the night," said poor Tippity, and I feel too tired to go any further. Then I saw your notice, so I came here to see if you could help me." In a trice, Tick-Tock had galloped off to Pippo's with Tippity on his back. It only took 10 minutes to take him there, and Tippity was very grateful. "I'll never forget what you've done," he said. "Well, you must pay me a gold piece, please," said Tick-Tock. "Good gracious," said Tippity in dismay. "Why, I thought you did these things for kindness." "No, certainly not," said Tick-Tock. He didn't get his gold piece from Tippity, though, for the elf meant to spend all his money on his ill cousin, and he wouldn't give the greedy rabbit even a penny. He ran into Pippo's house and banged the door. Then Tick-Tock began to make himself a dreadful nuisance. He went to Sammy Squirrel's every single day and shouted for his money. He went to Fuff-Puff's too, and Tippity's, and made such a fuss and bother about his wretched gold pieces that at last the worried little things managed to get enough money together and give him a gold piece each. Tick-Tock was delighted, for now he has 6 gold pieces to count. But the news soon went round that he charged for his kind deeds, and no one came to his burrow any more. Then one day a dreadful thing happened to Tick-Tock. He was running along through the wood when the wind was very high, and suddenly a tree came crashing down to the ground. Poor Tick-Tock was caught underneath one of the branches, and his leg was broken. He shouted for help, and who should come by but Sammy Squirrel. Oh dear, he won't help me," thought Tick-Tock. But he was quite mistaken. Sammy came running up, and in 2 twinks he had lifted the branch and set Tick-Tock free. "Half a minute," he said. "I'll get someone to help me carry you home." He ran off and brought back Tippity the elf. Tick-Tock felt certain that Tippity wouldn't dream of helping him, but he did, and he and Sammy gently carried him home. "You must have a nurse," said Sammy, and he went to fetch one. Who should he bring back but Fuff-Puff the fairy? Tick-Tock felt certain she wouldn't stay with him, but she did, and a very good little nurse she made. She brought his meals to him, and looked after him well until his leg had mended and he could go about once more. "How much do you charge?" he asked Fuff-Puff when she said goodbye to him. "Oh dear me, nothing at all," she said. "It's fine to do a kind deed, and I couldn't think of charging you anything, Tick-Tock." Sammy and Tippity said just the same thing, and Tick-Tock suddenly began to feel very ashamed of himself. "They might easily have charged me 2 gold pieces each," he thought. "I couldn't have said no, for they might have left me under that tree. Dear, how very kind of them." The more he thought about things, the more ashamed he felt, and that night he got up and went to his store for gold. Of gold pieces. He took 3 envelopes and put 2 pieces of gold into each. Then he ran to Sammy's and dropped 1 envelope into the letterbox. He did the same at Tippity's and Fuff-Puff's, and then he went back home feeling very happy. He didn't take down the notice outside his burrow. It is still there, and heaps of people go to him every day for help. For, you see, he doesn't charge anything at all now. He likes to do things for kindness, so no wonder he is the best loved rabbit in the whole of Fairyland. The Queen heard of his good deeds and knighted him. So if ever you want his help, be sure to address your letters to Sir Tick-Tock Rabbit, or they might not reach him. 11. Jimmy and the Jackdaw. Once there was a boy called Jimmy. When he had a birthday, his uncle gave him a book all about birds. There were pictures of birds in it, and pictures of birds' eggs too. "Aren't they pretty?" Jimmy said to his friend Connie. "Look at this picture of edge sparrow's eggs. They are as blue as the sky. I've a good mind to look for a hedge sparrow's nest and take the eggs for myself." "Oh, you mustn't do that," said Connie at once. "It isn't kind to take the eggs out of a bird's nest. You know you mustn't do it." Jimmy didn't listen. It was springtime, and many birds were building their nests. Jimmy saw them flying here and there with bits of straw or feather in their beaks. I shall look out for a hedge sparrow's nest and take the eggs," thought Jimmy. "I shall put the eggs into a box lined with cotton wool. No one will know." Well, he did find a hedge sparrow's nest. It was in the hawthorn hedge that ran beside the lane. Jimmy saw the bird fly into it, and he tiptoed to the hedge. He parted the sprays and peeped into the heart of the hedge. At first he couldn't see the nest, and then suddenly he did. It was well tucked away, hidden by the green leaves. And in the nest was the mother hedge sparrow, sitting on her eggs, keeping them warm. She looked at Jimmy, but she did not move. Fly away, said Jimmy, and he shook the hedge. It was very unkind of him. The little brown bird was afraid. She flew up from her nest and perched on a nearby tree, waiting anxiously. Jimmy saw the pretty blue eggs there, 4 of them. He was so greedy that he took them all. He did not leave the little mother bird even one. She was very unhappy. She flew back to her nest after Jimmy had gone and looked sadly into it. Where were her pretty, very precious eggs? They were gone. The little hedge sparrow burst into a sad little song and told the other birds around the dreadful thing. And told the other birds around the dreadful thing that had so suddenly happened to her. Jimmy went home with the eggs. They looked so very pretty on the white cotton wool in the box. They were so pretty that he thought that he would like to draw and paint them. Jimmy was very, very good at drawing and painting. "Now is my silver pencil," said Jimmy. "I can easily draw these eggs. I think I will draw a nest first and then draw the blue eggs inside." Jimmy began to draw with his silver pencil. He was very proud of that pencil because he had won it at school as a drawing prize. No other boy had a silver pencil. Jimmy felt important when he took it out of his pocket at school to use it. The next nest he found was a robin's. It was built on the ground under a hedge in Jimmy's own garden. There were 4 eggs in it, and Jimmy took them all. The robin made an angry clicking noise at him, but she couldn't stop him. She was very sad and flew away from her nest, making up her mind that she would never build or sing in Jimmy's garden again. Jimmy went on collecting eggs. He only told Connie about them and wanted to show them to her, but she wouldn't look. "I think you are bad and unkind," she said. "You are making a lot of birds unhappy. I don't like you." One day Jimmy walked by the old ruined castle. He heard the sound of many birds crying, "Jack, Jack, Jack," and he looked up. "What a lot of jackdaws," he said to himself. "Oh, wouldn't I like some jackdaws' eggs? I know I could find some if I climbed up to see." It wasn't very difficult for Jimmy to climb up to the castle tower. He found footholds in the crumbling stone and made his way up little by little. Soon he found himself looking through a hole, inside which a jackdaw had built his enormous untidy nest of twigs, and there, just within reach of Jimmy's hand, were 3 big eggs. "What a bit of luck," said Jimmy, and he put out his hand to take them. Soon he was climbing down the walls again, the eggs safely in his pocket. He hurried home and found a box big enough to put the eggs in. He really had quite a fine collection now. He took all the eggs every time he found a nest. He did not leave the mother bird even 1 or 2. He did not think once of her sadness when she found she had no eggs left to sit on. The next day Jimmy was sitting in his room by the open window, drawing a map of England for his geography lesson. He was using his lovely bright silver pencil, of course. He got up to fetch his ruler and put his pencil down on the window ledge. Just as he did this, a big bird, quite black except for a grey patch at the back of his head and neck, came flying by. It was a jackdaw. It saw the silver pencil shining in the sun, and it flew down to the sill at once. It loved bright, shiny things. It picked the silver pencil up in its beak. It was heavy, but the jackdaw was a big, strong bird. Jimmy turned when he heard the flutter of wings. He saw the jackdaw pick up his precious pencil. He saw him fly off with it in his beak. He saw him getting smaller and smaller as he flew right away to the castle tower, where he and the other jackdaws had their nests. "Oh," shouted Jimmy. "Oh, you wicked bird! You've stolen my pencil! Come back! Come back!" But the jackdaw didn't come back. He put it into his nest. He already had a piece of silver paper there and somebody's shining thimble. The pencil looked nice and lay beside them. Jimmy was terribly upset. He ran to the window and yelled. He began to cry, and the tears ran down his cheeks like 2 little streams. He was still crying when Connie came into his room. That jackdaw is a thief," wailed Jimmy. "He has stolen my most precious thing, the silver pencil I loved." Connie looked at Jimmy and didn't say anything. "Why don't you say something?" cried Jimmy, wiping his tears. "You know how much I loved my pencil. I won it for a prize. Aren't you sorry it's gone? It's most unfair of that jackdaw to come and take it like that." "Well, I think it was fair, not unfair," said Connie at last. "After all, Jimmy, the jackdaw was doing exactly the same thing you did to him. You took his eggs, and he took your pencil." "But I loved my pencil," cried Jimmy. Birds love their eggs, said Connie. They wouldn't sit so long on them as they do. They wouldn't look so happy when they are sitting if they didn't love their eggs, but you took them. The robin loved hers, and you took them. The jackdaw did too, but you took those. But my pencil was made of silver, and it was very precious, wept Jimmy. I expect birds' eggs are even more precious to them than your silver pencil was to you, said Connie. After all, eggs have something alive in them. Baby birds. I expect they are as precious to the bird as you are to your mother. Connie, be nice to me. I am so unhappy, said Jimmy. I would be nice to you if you just see that what has happened is quite fair and just, said Connie. You said the jackdaw was wicked because he stole your pencil. Well, why can't you see that you were bad to steal his eggs? You do horrid things yourself, but you don't like it when the same kind of thing happens to you. And what is more, I don't think the jackdaw is wicked, because he doesn't know that stealing is wrong. But you do. Oh, Connie, I do see that it's fair and just, wept poor Jimmy. I do. I won't take any more eggs. I was greedy and horrid to take every egg I saw. I won't do it any more. I know what it's like now to be without something I love. Oh, I wish I hadn't been so horrid. Connie put her arms around him. Don't cry, she said. I'll be nice to you now. I'll be nice to you now you say that. Perhaps I could buy you a new pencil with the money out of my money box. No, don't do that, said Jimmy at once. Perhaps the jackdaw will bring my pencil back. But he didn't. It is still in his nest. Poor Jimmy. It was a hard punishment, but a very fair one, wasn't it? 12. First walk in April. April showers. The children found out when Uncle Mary was due to come back, and they were all at the station to meet him. He was very pleased. As for Fergus, the little Scotty flung himself on them, barking madly, and they ran around and round them at top speed. Circus dog, said Pat with a laugh. Oh, it's nice to see you both again, Uncle Mary. Well, it's good to see all of you too, said Uncle Mary, taking his suitcase and leading the way out of the little station. I suppose you want me to keep my promise and take you for a nice long walk. Straight away now, this very minute, in fact, at once. The children laughed. We'll help you with your suitcase and then you can come, can't you, if you're not tired? The country is lovely now. Now we've been for some walks by ourselves, Uncle, and we've spotted quite a lot of new flowers, and we've looked them up in our book, the one you lent us. We're longing to know if we are right. Well, you really are bright children, said Uncle Mary. I shall have to reward you. We'll go for a walk straight away, and as it is nearly dinner time, we will take our meal with us and eat it somewhere sunny and warm. Can your mother manage sandwiches? Can your mother manage sandwiches for everyone, do you think? Oh yes, she's awfully good at that, said Pat joyfully. I'll run on ahead and ask her. Before 20 minutes had passed, the 5 ramblers were on their way again, Pat carrying a kit bag full of sandwiches, biscuits and cake. It was a lovely day. The sky was as blue as cornflowers, and enormous white clouds sailed across it. Like heaps of cotton wool, said John. But there were showers as well as sunshine, for it was April. Mother had made them all take their mackintoshes, for sometimes the showers were very heavy. Uncle Mary had his too. Only Fergus was lucky enough not to need one. We'll show you the new flowers we have found as we come to them, said Pat. Look, there's one. He pointed to a plant with bright blue flowers, growing on a nearby bank. Isn't it a glorious blue? Said Pat. The flowers look like eyes gazing at us, don't they? One of its names is Angel's Eyes, said Uncle Mary. Another name is Bird's Eye. It is another speedwell. You remember the little ivy-leaved speedwell we found earlier, don't you? Well, this is another of the same family, and its proper name is Germander Speedwell. Can you remember that, Germander? You will certainly be able to remember its other names. They are so pretty. Germander Speedwell, Bird's Eye, Angel's Eyes, said Janet. Lovely. I wish I had a set of names like that. Well, that's one new flower we found, Uncle, and there's another. The second one was a pure white flower whose 5-petaled head was set on a very fine stalk, almost a thread. It had straight, brittle stems, hardly able to hold themselves upright. "Isn't it dainty?" said Janet. "What is it, Uncle Mary?" "The stitchwort," said Uncle Mary. "Do you see its lovely orange-red stamens, Janet? It is called the stitchwort because of the fine stitch or thread on which the flower head hangs." "You do tell us interesting things," said Janet, watching the dainty white flowers shake their heads on their fine stitches. "Now, John, where's your new flower?" "Oh, Uncle, I don't even know if it is a flower," said John eagerly. "It's the funniest thing you ever saw. First, when I saw it, it was a sort of twisted green sheath growing straight upwards in the ditch. The next time I saw it, the sheath thing was undoing itself. And then it looked like those things the old monks used to wear, hoods or cowls they were called, weren't they? And then, Uncle, a sort of poker grew straight up in the very middle of the sheath. What do you think of that?" "Most extraordinary," said Uncle Mary. "Show me this poker flower, will you?" John took him to a nearby ditch, then showed him a curious plant. From a big arrow-shaped, purple-blotched leaves rose a strange flower. As John said, it was like a monk's cowl or hood in a green, and in the middle was a purple poker, like a tall, round tongue. "It's a bit like a tiny bulrush head, isn't it?" said Janet. "Whatever is it, Uncle?" "It's a wild arum," said Uncle Mary, "a very common wild plant, and a very strange and curious one. It has many names, lords and ladies. Cuckoo pint, wake robin, and it grows freely everywhere. The lords are the purple pokers, the ladies are the paler ones you find." "It doesn't seem to have any stamens or stigmas at all," said Pat, picking a wild arum and looking at the tongue or poker. "It has plenty," said Uncle Mary, and he stripped away the green sheath from the poker, and from below it too. The sheath bulged out there, and in the bulge grew stamens, stigmas, and hairs. "Look, 2 sorts of flowers, female and male," said Uncle Mary, pointing to the stigmas and the stamens. "There are some flies in this bottom part," said Janet. "What are they doing there?" "Ah, there's quite a story to tell," said Uncle Mary. "This arum wants small flies to come and pollinate it. It wants pollen from another arum brought to its stigmas, so to attract the kind of flies it wants, it sends out a nasty smell. Along come flies like nasty smells, thinking there must be food for them somewhere, if there is a smell like that." "What do they do?" asked Pat. "The flies creep into the sheath and follow the smell downwards, past this bugle at the bottom of the poker," said Uncle Mary. "But alas for them, there is no nasty smelling food down there to match the smell. They try to get out, but can't because the ring of hairs won't let them out, so they bustle about, cross and puzzled, and brush against these female flowers, the stigmas. They leave on the stigmas any pollen they have already got on their backs from other arums. Well, when the stigmas have the pollen, they want to make berries, and the stamens have their turn. They get ripe and send pollen over the flies, I suppose," said Janet. "They do," said Uncle Mary, "and then the arum kindly sends out some sweet nectar, which the flies feast on. That is their reward. When they have feasted, the hairs allow them to creep out, and off they fly to another arum, ready to pollinate the next lot of stigmas, when they are once more imprisoned below the poker." "What a strange story," said Janet, looking for more arums. "Those little flies have quite exciting adventures. I shall think of them whenever I see lords and ladies now." "Come on," said John, pulling at Uncle Mary's hand. "Vegas is getting tired of waiting for us." So off they all went, chattering and laughing, keeping eyes and ears open for anything new and exciting. Janet was delighted to be with Uncle Mary again, and kept close by him, eager not to miss a word he said. "Look at that blackthorn," he suddenly said, pointing to a starry mass of blossom on the hedge nearby. "Isn't it a fairy-like flower, set against the dark thorny twigs?" "It's a bit like the hawthorn," said Janet, stopping to look at it, "only the hawthorn has red twigs, not black." "Yes," said Uncle Mary, "the hawthorn is the red thorn, and the sloe is the blackthorn. We shall find the little purple plums on the blackthorn in the autumn if we look for them." "Lots of the trees are leafing now," cried Pat, pointing to the hedge, where bits of green were to be seen, and to the sheaf of twigs around the elm tree boles, all in tender green leaf. "And look at that dear little leaves on the birch trees, Uncle. Isn't it a lovely time of year? Do you notice the red elm tree flowers, said Uncle Mary, pointing upwards. All the children looked, and deep red against the blue April sky they saw the masses of elm blossom. They were surprised. I never knew before that the elm tree had a flower, said Janet. Have all trees got flowers? Have all trees got flowers, Uncle? All of them, said Uncle. The oak, the ash, the sycamore, the lime, as well as the laburnum, the apple, the hawthorn, and all the rest. You must look for them this spring. Look at the daisies, look at the daisies, shouted John, who was in front with Fergus. He pointed to a grass bank which was almost white with daisies. That bank looks as if it's sprinkled with snow. If you can cover 9 daisies with your foot, then it is springtime, said Uncle Mary. John tried and counted. 10 daisies, he announced. So it's more than springtime. Hurrah! The sun suddenly went in as an enormous white cloud rushed across the sky. Big drops of rain pattered down, and the ramblers put on their mackintoshes quickly. Not enough to make a shelter, said Uncle Mary, looking up. A real April shower, soon over. There, the sun is peeping out again already. Where shall we have our dinner? Asked Pat. I'm hungry. By the little stream that runs into and through the big pond at the side of the common, said Uncle Mary. We may see a few water birds there. So when they came to the chattering little stream, they found a lovely place under a willow tree whose fresh leaves shone golden in the sun, and sat down to enjoy their sandwiches. Fergus cuddled up by John, for he felt certain that the small boy would share nearly everything with him, and he was right. A flash of brilliant blue shot down the stream by them, and all 3 children cried out in wonder. What was that? The kingfisher, said Uncle Mary. Maybe he has come to have his dinner with us. He was fond of perching on that branch there, overlooking the water. Ah, watch! Here he is, back again. And on that very branch, too. What luck! We may see him fishing for his dinner. The brilliant blue and green bird, his orange underparts glowing brightly, sat on the branch, watching the water. He had very little tail, which gave him a rather stumpy appearance, but his beak made up for that, for it was long and strong. Suddenly he spied a fish in the stream, and dived headfirst into the water. He was up again in a choice, and wriggling fish back in his beak, and look, it was gone. In a few moments he dived in again, but this time he missed the fish. The children loved watching him as they sat by the waterside and ate their dinner. Then a little black moorhen came up, her head bobbing as she swam over the water. When she saw the children she took fright, and disappeared below the water at once. The children laughed to see such a vanishing act. See her big, said Uncle Mary, pointing to a black speck moving across the surface of the water. She is swimming under the water, where you see those double wrinkles spreading out behind her on the stream. She probably has a nest somewhere, a big platform on the flattened rushes, where she lays her eggs. She always covers them carefully when she leaves. They finished their meal, cleared up the scraps so as to leave no litter anywhere, and went up the stream to the big pond. How the tadpoles had grown! Some of them had their back legs now, and they were very lively indeed. Minnows and sticklebacks swam in the sun-warmed water, and Uncle Mary made the children notice the spines on the stickleback. Do you see the little spined fish? He asked. He builds a nest each spring, chases his mate in there to lay her eggs, and then keeps guard over them until they hatch. I never before heard of a fish that made a nest, said Janet in amazement. What's it like? Muff-like in shape, he said Uncle. Perhaps one day you will see one. You certainly would if you kept a pair of sticklebacks in an aquarium and gave them bits and pieces to build a nest. Now, I just want to show you the little creature I told you about that builds itself a house. Uncle Mary scraped about in the mud in a certain place in the pond, and brought up 2 curious creatures. He showed them to their children. It looked as if he was holding 2 tubes made of bits of stick and tiny grains. This little insect that lives inside these craves has a very, very soft body that other pond animals like to eat, he said. There he lives quite safely, putting out his head and legs when he wants to crawl about, and able to hide himself quickly when enemies swim near. Do these funny little grubs turn into anything? Asked Janet. They are caddis grubs, the grubs of the caddis fly, said Uncle Mary. There will come a day when they crawl from the water and fly away into the air, complete with wings. The curious houses were returned to the pond, and the children spent some time in watching the water snails on the weed and some big black beetles coming up to the surface of the pond for air. The water was full of life, and the ramblers spent a whole hour watching the creatures that made it their home. They didn't at all want to go home, but at last they had to. John found a robin's nest on the way back, in a very curious place. He saw an old boot lying in a ditch, and when he went to look at it, there inside it was a robin's nest, with a bright-eyed robin sitting closely on it. "What a funny place to build a nest," said John in delight. "Look, everybody, the robin doesn't mind us seeing her a bit." "The robin loves to nest in anything that once belonged to her friend man," said Uncle Mary. "She will nest in old kettles and saucepans, in the pockets of scarecrows, and, as you see, even in a tramp's old boot." They went home through the water meadows, and exclaimed in delight at the sheet of gold they saw there. "Kingcups!" cried Janet. "Lovely golden marsh marigolds, Uncle. Aren't they beautiful?" They belong to the buttercup family, surely. What did you call it now? Ranunculacea? Ranunculaceae? "Right," said Uncle Mary. "Yes, they are gorgeous flowers, aren't they? And look at that little pond over there, covered with white blossoms. They are another buttercup, a white one this time, the water crowfoot." They all went to look at the sheet of little white water buttercups. The crowfoot. "How funny," said John, pulling at one of the plants. "It's got two kinds of leaves, Uncle. This flat kind that floats on the surface of the water, and this stringy kind, all cut up, that grows in the water itself." "Each kind is needed by the crowfoot," said Uncle Mary. "It would be of no use to have flat leaves below the water, and no use to have stringy ones on top, for they wouldn't float." "Plants are very clever," said John. "Oh, Fergus, you've splashed me with mud. Uncle, he's trying to look for rabbits down that waterfall's hole. Isn't he silly?" Then home they all went, tired and happy, stopping only once more to pick a bunch of the pale dog violets that grew by the hundred at the edge of the wood and in sheltered places on the common. The gorse was ablaze there now, and was a magnificent sight. It sent out a glorious smell. "Coconut," said Janet. "Vanilla," said Pat. "No, just lovely gorse, blazing in the hot April sun," said Uncle Mary. "That was one of the nicest walks we have ever had," said John, remembering the robin's nest he had found, and the brilliant blue kingfisher. "Wasn't that kingfisher lovely? I do wish he lived in my garden." And that's it for today. That is 6 more stories of Enid Blyton's Springtime Stories. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope that you have felt relaxed, and more importantly, I hope you have drifted off into a nice deep sleep. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. But remember, if I don't see you before, I will see you the next time I see you.